And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang has the week off. He'll be back with us on Monday. If you're on hold and you want to weigh in on the topic, has tipping gone too far? Stay there. We'll get to more of your calls coming up later on in the hour. And if you want to join in, give us a call at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. It is my pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the author of Behind the Curtain, an insider's view of Jay Leno's Tonight Show, which is available online at Amazon.com or wherever you purchase your favorite books. He's also the former producer of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. In fact, Jay wrote the foreword to his book, which I highly recommend if you were a fan of the way late-night TV used to be before it became hyper-political. This book has great story after great story after great story. It'll take you back to the days when late-night TV was enjoyable on a nightly basis, so I couldn't recommend the book higher. Dave Berg, author of the book Behind the Curtain, welcome.
Thank you, John.
All right, so there's a lot of news going on right now in late-night TV, including what happened over at CBS when Stephen Colbert was told a year from now they won't be needing his services anymore as host of the late-night program on CBS. According to some of the industry trades, that program was losing $40 million a year, and CBS didn't see any scenario where that show made money in the future. He claims the money had nothing to do with it, that he was let go because of his politics, because he's a critic of President Trump, and CBS is a right-wing company that was punishing him for his politics. What do you make of what happened to Stephen Colbert's program?
Well, I don't think you can lose $40 million a year. I think it could have been as high as $50 million a year, and expect to stay on the air. He just was losing money for CBS, and the way he talked about it, he left out the fact that he was basically down to less than 2 million viewers. He called himself number one in late night. Even though Gutfeld was getting 3.5 million. So there's really no way you can expect to stay on the air with ratings that abysmal.
Talk to me about your role when you were at The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Besides being a profitable show, besides being a show that drew numbers that any network would kill for today, you guys served another purpose, and that is whenever NBC had a new program that was launching in prime time, or Matt Lauer was promoting a book, or there was some NBC property that needed a little push, you guys were a very useful vehicle for the network to promote whatever it was that NBC wanted being promoted. You look at what's going on right now in late night TV, and Stephen Colbert, for example, has different politicians on each night. He has different left-wing influencers from social media on. You don't see a lot of stars from CBS programs. You don't see a lot of big box office, bold-faced names that are promoting a movie that the company may have an interest in. They don't use that show the way that the networks used to use the traditional late-night shows. And because of that, I think the show becomes less valuable. Your thoughts?
Oh, that's a very good point. I hadn't thought of it. We call that vertical integration, and it worked very well for NBC. Of course, it works better when you have, top shows, number one shows. One of the biggest ones that we promoted over the years was The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice. And so we formed an interesting relationship with Trump back then, but that's kind of a side story. But I do find it very interesting that, and I'm going to guess that stars themselves don't want to be associated with Colbert.
because they just want to stay apolitical. And if they're promoting a show
Yeah,
or a
I mean,
book or a movie, they don't want to be dragged into the political discussions.
I think so. I think it's just it's not a good look when you basically you're not funny anymore. He's sort of crossed the line from doing jokes with punchlines and has sort of forgotten about the punchlines and has become basically a propagandist for the machine.
And here's what I don't understand if you're Stephen Colbert. If you're Colbert and you're essentially doing a cable news program that could appear on MSNBC or CNN or wherever, you could do that for $2 if it's just you and a politician sitting there talking about politics. You don't need a band. You don't need the Ed Sullivan Theater. You don't need a warm up comic. You don't need to have the big baskets of fruit for all the guests and the open bar and everything that comes with those shows. I don't understand why you would go small if your budget is a big budget. If your budget's a big budget, make the show big. But he has this big budget and he did everything he could to make the show small.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And the big budget, the other thing that's fascinating is that big budget included a staff of writers, up to 75 of them. Now, many of them were freelancers, but I would say he had 40 to 50 writers. What were they doing, since he was basically not doing jokes anymore? And by comparison, Greg Gutfeld has 5 writers. So what you say makes perfect sense.
If Leno were to show up to the Tonight Show studios, the offices earlier in the day, and he were to look at the jokes that were written for him by the writers, and it was out of the 10 jokes, 8 of them were slamming Republicans and 2 of them were non-political, would he allow that to air that night, or would he look for balance?
Oh, absolutely not. He was all about balance. And he wasn't against politics. He wasn't against, jokes, even some tough, hard-hitting jokes once in a while. He just wanted balance. He wanted to skewer everybody equally, which was in the same tradition as Johnny Carson. No, he would have. He definitely would have said, "Guys, come up with more jokes."
Jay Leno has spoken out publicly about CBS canceling Stephen Colbert, and Leno was critical of the performance of Colbert and the other late night hosts who have done exactly what you just described, which is pick a side, promote the political philosophy of their side, and trash the other side constantly. Leno basically said that what you do when you do that is you alienate half the country, and the objective is to create the biggest audience possible, and you can't get there if you alienate half of the potential viewers. Are you surprised that Leno went public with those remarks?
I really am not surprised that he did it. First of all, I think we have to remember that Jay made those remarks 2 weeks before the announcement that Colbert was getting fired. He was being interviewed by a guy at the Reagan Center and was just answering the question. And that point of view, he's had that point of view for years. In fact, when comedians would come on our show and Jay would talk to them in the green room, he would advise them, do not take political sides. That's not a good idea. So that's a view that he has long held. And he's really taken a lot of hits from critics. But I find it fascinating when the critics come down on Jay, not one of them mentioned that he was number one. He was number one in late night for almost 2 decades. He was the king of late night. It wasn't Letterman. It's the guy that gets the most viewers, and he had the most viewers. So I think a guy like that has every right to say what he did, and I agree with him.
When do you think late night started their transition into the politics? And I say that because I know that Donald Trump was a polarizing figure, particularly for those on the left. The people on the left suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, and it's eating their brains, and they can't think straight anymore. But I almost think that it started before Donald Trump got into politics. And I say that because when people think about David Letterman, there's really a couple of different David Lettermans that pop into my mind. There was the NBC version of David Letterman when he was out there trying new things and really just experimenting on live television, pushing the envelope, and certainly created a lane for himself in late night television. He almost got the Tonight Show when Johnny Carson retired. Jay Leno beat him out for that job. CBS was his consolation prize. But then at the very end of his career, he kind of went nasty. There was a meanness about him, a mean-spiritedness in some of the punchlines at the end of his tenure at CBS, where I remember thinking, okay, this guy has picked a team, this guy has picked a side, you can tell that he's bitter about politics, and it's not a good look, and he retired about the time he should have retired because you don't want to stick around long after you've gotten burned out. But it seemed like the crop that came after him kind of took that version of David Letterman and decided that that's what they wanted to be.
Yeah. First of all, we actually had quite a few political guests. Jay did, and so did Letterman. But the interviews were quite different. You would have them on to tell anecdotes and stories, and it wasn't about promoting the propaganda of the party that they were with. I think the real turning point, John, is the day that Jimmy Fallon was interviewing Trump in 2016, and which was a great get at the time, by the way. He tousled, you recall, Donald Trump's hair, and it was just a fun thing that you did in late night. Well, the left skewered him for that. They said he was humanizing Donald Trump, and everybody came down and on the left and demonized Jimmy Fallon, and then they kept doing it. And he, at the time, you may not remember, he was number one in late night. He had 4 million viewers. Colbert had hardly any viewers. And if you also remember, at that time, Colbert was there was speculation in the press that his show was floundering so much that he probably wouldn't make it to the end of 2016. This was in the fall of 2016. At that point, I think that's when it shifted, and Colbert took the signal. I can't just keep doing a late night show. I'm gonna go to the left. I'm gonna shift to the left. And he did right after that and started pulling in more viewers. I believe that's when it got ultra political.
We're speaking with Dave Berg, author of the book Behind the Curtain, An Insider's View of Jay Leno's Tonight Show, available online at Amazon.com. Dave, there is going to be a battle here in the state of California over redistricting. Gavin Newsom says he wants to gerrymander up the congressional districts so that the Democrats will gain 5 more seats nationally. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, who was the leading voice for the independent commission drawing the congressional lines, says he is going to line up in opposition to that push, and he is going to campaign up and down the state against it. When Arnold Schwarzenegger declared that he was going to run for governor of California, you not only were working on the show at the time, but that was your segment. That was a segment that you helped put together. You write about that experience in the book. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, it was funny because Arnold had 2 staffs at the time, a political staff and an entertainment staff, because the entertainment staff said, don't listen to what Arnold says about politics. He's just using it to promote Terminator 3, which was about to come out. And so none of us expected Arnold to make any, announcement that he was running for governor on the Tonight Show. And the political staff agreed with that. So when Arnold made that remark, it really threw us for a loop. It was like, where did that come from? But of course, we had to make the shift. All of Jay's questions about Terminator 3 went out the window, and we had to, he had to come up with some, decent questions about the Arnold's gubernatorial campaign. And then the backstory to that is that Jay and Arnold really were, and I think probably to this day, very good friends. Jay never thought of him as a Republican or a Democrat. He just thought of Arnold as his friend. So that was one of the most fascinating. Now, Arnold said he came up with it on the spot. I don't believe it. I think he had that well planned ahead of time.
And you came to the Tonight Show from news. You worked at CNBC before you went to the Tonight Show. I would imagine when he broke that news on your set, and you tape earlier in the day. You obviously don't tape at 11:30 at night. You tape earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And word started to leak out that that's what Arnold did. Did you have every NBC O&O on planet Earth blowing up your phone, wanting that tape?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, God. They were blowing up our phones, which we're happy to accommodate, right? But also the press was really upset. They thought that was their turf. And how dare we interfere with what they're supposed to be doing, which is serious news. And I had come from that world, like you said, but I had been at NBC Network News 7 years and then CNBC.
What was Donald Trump like?
I wanted to bring something up.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
There is some news I wanted to share with you, if you think it's significant. Howard Stern, there are now rumors that his show may be canceled. And it looks like that's going to happen. He's nearing the end of his 5-year contract with SiriusXM, and the reasons I believe this is happening is pretty much the same as Colbert. Here you had a guy that started out as the rebel, the guy that was against big government, the guy that was against the establishment, who basically turned into a curmudgeon and an advocate for the machine.
Yeah, if you were to look at him early on in his career and look at him now, it would smack you that you're not even looking at the same person.
It's an amazing transition. I was never a fan of his, but you have to respect what he did. And the interesting thing about Howard Stern, he sort of reminds me about Colbert in one way. The Howard Stern that you see on the air is a character. Backstage, he's kind, he's gracious, he's accommodating, he's very nice, and then he turns into this character.
How many times did he do the show?
Howard was, he did it pretty regularly. I would say 7, 8, 9, quite a few times.
And always super polite.
Always backstage.
Interesting. It's always funny to me when you find out that one person has a public persona and the private persona is 180 degrees the opposite.
It always makes me a little suspicious. And I believe that has been Colbert's problem. I think he's been playing a character. He doesn't really have a point of view. There really is no Colbert there. And the proof in the pudding is, when he started out on the Colbert Report, he was playing a character. He was playing a Bill O'Reilly. He was doing a parody of Bill O'Reilly. And that worked really well. And then when he took over for Letterman, then he had to be himself. And that didn't work. So, as I said, he was almost canceled until he decided, okay, now I'm going to play another character. I'm going to go far left.
Yep. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Dave Berg, author of the book Behind the Curtain, An Insider's View of Jay Leno's Tonight Show, available online at Amazon.com. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
It's the John Phillips Show. Hey guys, John Phillips here for Hollywood Suits. I was blown away the first time I went to Hollywood Suits. First of all, they had thousands of suits just in my size alone. You see, they supply the industry with suits that are sold in stores all over the country for 4 or 5 times more than what you'd pay at Hollywood Suits. Let me get into the details here. You get 3 complete suits made of the finest wool for only $599. I know it sounds unbelievable, but even at that price for all 3 suits, they throw in 3 cotton shirts, 3 ties, belts, socks, and handkerchiefs, all at no extra charge. That's not 1, but 3 merino wool suits with all of the accessories for $599. They also have designer suits from Armani, Canali, Salvatore Laurenti, and so many more. All at the lowest prices anywhere. They fit everyone. Hollywood Suits. 3 gigantic locations in Hollywood, Torrance, and Westminster. Give them a call at 800-SUITS-99 or find them online at hollywoodsuits.com. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you could do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you'd like to subscribe to the show, that's easy to do. Just get out your handy-dandy iPhone. You can listen to us whenever you're waiting at the dentist's office, you're waiting at the airport, you're waiting at the DMV. Basically, when you're pissed off, you can listen to us, and maybe we'll make you less pissed off. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. I told you earlier in the program I donated to my nephew's cross-country team. I gave them $50 on the website. After I put in my credit card information, they asked me if I would like to leave a $9 tip. I said, no. They said, are you sure? We're reliant on tips for operational expenses. I will be damned if I'm going to tip a computer. I'll tip a waiter. I'll tip a bartender. I'll tip someone who cuts my hair. I will not tip a computer. That is one bridge too far. Has tipping gotten out of hand? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Frank and Martinez. Frank, hello.
Hello, John. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, sir.
Okay. God, I love your show. You fit. I like the format. You fit into the state. Focus on that. Keep it up. You guys are great, funny, and all that.
Thank you.
I wouldn't usually call, but tipping is something that angers me in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's overused, and they're asking for tips for many things that shouldn't have the need to add a tip to something like buying a candy bar at a checkout stand. It's ridiculous. However, having said that, I spent part of my life trying to put food on the table for my family, and I had to work a second job at a dinner restaurant, and the pay sucked per hour, but that wasn't it. You relied on your tips for the money you were really earning, and that worked. If I loafed or didn't take advantage of the opportunities, I didn't get tipped, and that was the way it should work, I think. One time, my wife and I took a trip to Bermuda where the tip was included in the price of the meal. The service sucked. There was no reason that those people had to do anything but sit on their backsides and do the absolute minimum. You take the incentive for the server to perform out of it when you do that. You take the percentage of the server's income out when he has to do nothing in the first place, and that ruins the idea of tips. I think Trump's offer to take tips and the earning thereof off your taxes, I'm in total agreement with that. That may help somewhere. But if you ruin tipping, you're going to ruin service.
What'd you think of Bermuda?
Loved it. Rented a little motor scooter back in the day when we could do that. Went all over the island, had a great time. Everything was cool until we went to this coffee shop, and it kind of put a sour taste. But other than that, it's beautiful, of course. And I recommend it to anybody who wants to have a little time to themselves.
I've only been there once, and when I was there on a cruise ship, and I took one of those kayaking tours. And they take you by boat to the area where you get in the canoes and you start your kayaking tour. And they said,
Right.
okay, this is going to be your kayak. I said, okay. And everyone was getting in their kayak. And the woman in the kayak next to me looked like Lizzo. And I thought to myself, as this woman was struggling to get into the kayak, she is going to end up at the bottom of the ocean, and I'm going to have to swim down there and get her. We get in these kayaks, and not only did Lizzo not sink to the bottom of the ocean, but she looked like she had a motor in the back of that boat, and she was doing laps around the rest of us. I could not believe my eyes.
Oh, you made my day, sir.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Edward in Topanga. Edward, hello.
Hello, John. Thank you for taking my call. It's worth the wait, and give my best to Randy.
Will do.
I had an interesting experience. We were celebrating our 50-year high school reunion a couple months ago here in Torrance, and it was a wonderful event. The night before, we went to a Marriott in town, had a pre-reunion party. At 50 years, you're just happy to see that we're all on this side of the earth, that we're walking on the grass, still around. So there's a lot of love, a lot of happiness, and everybody was buying drinks and keeping open tabs. And then when I went to close out my tab, the bartender gave me my tab. It had a subtotal, a blank space for a tip, and a total line. And I asked him, do you mind if I see the detail of this? Because I wanted to make sure that nobody was throwing drinks on my tab. My permission, and when they handed it to me, there was an 18% service charge added onto the bill without them telling me. So now, on top of the $200 that I spent, there was a $36 service charge, and they wanted me to tip on top of that, which when you talk about a bridge too far, these people can basically jump off that bridge. So they told me, oh, we can get the service manager to remove that. And I go, yeah, I'd like that. I would really like that, please. And as far as I'm concerned, I just wrote down the $200 and left. It's kind of perturbed that they'd kind of sneak something like that by me without even giving me the detailed price. They just gave you this summation of what you had, thinking that they can sneak that one by you, and I thought that was a little dishonest. So, yeah, it just...
Well, I think it's a trick. I think that they expect at that point that you're blowing a point too, and you're not even going to pay attention to what's on the bill, and you're just going to assume that you need to leave a tip, and you're going to tip them double.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too, because I do financial accounting. I'm a controller, so numbers are important to me. But 12 years ago, I developed an allergy to alcohol, and I started breaking out in handcuffs. So I was completely sober. I've been sober for 12 years.
Oh my!
But I don't mind buying drinks for my friends. And yeah, so they were thinking I'm all really, guys. Yeah, well, it cost them everything because I just don't like this dishonesty. But,
just their luck that the one sober guy in the room got the bill.
Yeah, well, I was buying drinks for my friends. Like I said, there's a lot of love there, and at 50 years, we don't care what people are doing for a living. We're just happy we're alive and successful, and there was a lot of love spread around there. So, Anyway, thank you for taking my call. Like I said, it was worth the wait. Give my best to Randy. You guys are great.
Well, thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Cindy in my hometown of Garden Grove. Cindy, hello.
Hi, John. How you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, nice. So, thank you. So, I'm just calling about. I'm a server. So, I work at a steakhouse right by Disneyland, and so I really appreciate you saying how you tip your servers, you tip your bartenders, and things like that, because it's getting a little bad out here. People are coming, they got big parties, and giving me a 20 and 280.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
No, I'm not kidding at all. And I understand. They go to Disneyland. They spend all their money. They come from all over the world. Lots of places don't tip like, here, but they know. They know we tip. They love us when we go there.
Now, are you at
But
one of
it's
the
a little-
steakhouses that accepts gift cards that they sell at Costco just by chance?
I think that is us.
Okay. Now, when people
That is
pay with
us.
the Costco gift cards, do they tip you on the 80%, which is what they pay? They pay only 80 cents on the dollar for those gift cards, or do they tip you the full amount usually?
So, do they tip us the full amount? I would say on the average, no. I would say no. I mean, I have such generous customers. I have people that are, long time that I've taken care of. They come in. I saw their families grow up. I've seen this, but on the whole, no. If you take, let's say the steak was wrong and we made them a new one, right? So they wanted it medium rare, but it came out medium well. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. We can take care of that for you. So we go and make them a new one, and we take that off their check because, it didn't come out right, and they don't tip us on that. It's very rare that we get tipped on that. Or if there is something wrong, we take care of the whole meal. They've walked out and not given me anything. And I'm like, oh, that's awkward.
Well, I think your
That's a
big
little
problem
awkward.
over there is that the locals, and I grew up there, the locals typically don't go to the restaurants near Disneyland. We stay away from Disneyland because the traffic and all the tourists, and sometimes parking can be a pain in the ass over there. So the locals seem
But I'm
to...
not in Disneyland.
Okay,
I'm
'cause
down
there's
the street from Disneyland.
Yeah.
I'm right by the hotels, and we do get more tourists because 5 hotels are right behind us, so we get people from everywhere. But we're like the second busiest steakhouse in our chain in the state of California.
Wow.
So it's Lakewood and then us. So we kind of banter back and forth. We're very, very busy. We're very busy, and we've extended our hours, so now we're open till midnight and everything. And I do very well. I take care of my family. I want for nothing. But what has happened now is they have, you know how you pay tip share? You know what tip share is?
Is that where you share the bussers and everyone else share with them?
Yeah, so part of my money that comes in, I give a percentage to the bartenders, I give a percentage to the host, a percentage goes to the bussers, because they clean my tables, they make my drinks, they seat my tables. So it used to be 3% of your sales. 3% of your sales goes to bartender, host. Then it went up to 4% of your sales. And I'm okay. Well, now it's 6%.
Oh, my
sales.
God.
Well, they have decided to take 2% of my sales, that they added an extra 2% to give to the guys in the back of the house. So the dishwasher, the salad maker, the guy who makes my steaks, those guys, 2% of my sales goes to the back of the house. And I love those guys, right? But if they mess up my steak, they don't lose 2%. They don't lose any money.
Well, what's
They
next? They're
walk
going to
in
raise it to
and-
9% so they can give some to the cow?
I walk in every day, I'm down $50. $50 every day since they've raised this to 2%, because my sales are like $2,500. $2,500 a night, 2% of that, that's an extra $50. 25 times 6, that's what I'm tipping out that I don't even see. I don't even see it.
Here's a suggestion. You guys need to be
Uh-huh,
open
I'm
for
listening.
breakfast, because if you're open for breakfast, that way you get them before they get their pockets picked by Mickey and Minnie.
I agree. Steak and eggs.
There you go.
Steak and eggs are great. Steak and eggs are great. But thank you. I appreciate you. I love listening to you guys. And come on down. We say things like, "G'day, mate." If you want to come on over, we'll be looking for you.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you for the call. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. More of your calls coming up right here on The John Phillips Show. It's The John Phillips Show. You can celebrate summer at Resorts World Las Vegas. Resorts World Las Vegas offers a 5.5-acre pool complex with 5 unique pool experiences and the largest elevated pool deck on the Las Vegas Strip. IU Day Club is a stunning oasis inspired by the islands of Southeast Asia. If you're caller number 9 right now at 888-790-5222, that's 888-790-5222, you'll win a Resorts World summer getaway, including a 2-night stay at Resorts World Las Vegas, 2 VIP passes at IU Day Club, and $175 in food and beverage credits. All of this provided by our friends at Resorts World Las Vegas, now offering no resort fees and complimentary parking. Good luck dialing. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Rose in Granada Hills. Rose, hello. Okay, let's go to Mark listening online in Delaware. Mark, welcome.
Right, thank you. A good segment with Dave Berg. It was phenomenal. But the definition of tip is to ensure promptness, TIP. And when they're not prompt or the service is lousy, I really get insulted when the receipt has 18%, 20%, 22%, 25%, and they just raised the prices 10%. So, or 20%. To me, it's just annoying. I don't like it. And it's rare that I leave less than 15%, but there have been occasions where I've left nothing because of there was lousy service or the food was cold or, it depended. But I get really insulted when they or the tip is they're printed for you or they're expecting more. And I'm just looking for prompt service.
What do you do if you're at the airport, you're buying a newspaper and a candy bar, and they expect a tip?
I don't tip. One, I picked out the newspaper myself. I picked the candy bar out myself, and I go up there and I'm giving, they scan it and they go $10 because it's at the airport. And there's enough charge on all the products anyway. What did they do to ensure promptness to earn the tip? It doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Vince in Huntington Beach. Vince, you have about 30 seconds. Go. All right. Let's go to Michael in Petaluma. You have that 30 seconds.
Hello, John. Thanks for taking my call. I'll make it brief, but it's a good point that I think everybody should consider. I have a friend that goes out a lot, and he buys expensive bottles of wine at restaurants. And he doesn't feel he should tip any more than a cheap bottle of wine. It's the same amount of work, whether you open a $80 bottle or a $15 bottle. So just my thought, and I wonder what maybe you thought about that.
Yeah, it takes the same amount of energy to open up a bottle of Camus as it does to open up a Bartles and James.
Yes. Sir, I enjoy your show. We listen every day. You make my afternoons a lot brighter.
All right. Well, thank you for those kind words, sir. I appreciate it. And I'll be back tomorrow at noon for another edition of The John Phillips Show.